The crisp autumn air hung over Hudson College's soccer field as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the turf. Jamal Johnson stood at the edge of the field, clutching his worn-out soccer ball, his fingers tracing the faded seams. Around him the team trained with energy, their laughter and camaraderie filling the air. But Jamal was outside, watching. He wasn't just outside the field, he was outside their world. Jamal loved soccer with every fiber of his being. It wasn't just a game to him, it was his escape, identity, and dream. Growing up in the Bronx, he'd spent countless hours perfecting his footwork in the neighborhood park. Yet, here, at Hudson College, none of that seemed to matter. Despite his talent, he remained invisible to the coach and the team. His dark skin, coupled with his modest background, overshadows his abilities. As Jamal stood silently watching the practice that day, something unusual happened. Ethan, the team's star forward, twisted his ankle while trying a sharp turn during a drill. The practice came to an abrupt halt as Ethan cried out in pain. Jamal's heart raced. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. His opportunity was finally here. He clutched his ball tightly, willing himself to step forward. But as he prepared to approach the coach, a voice inside him whispered doubts. What if they dismiss you again? What if they laugh? Shaking off the fear, Jamal took a deep breath. He had no intention of letting this chance slip away. This wasn't just a moment. It was his fight against a lifetime of being overlooked. Jamal Johnson's life was a testament to perseverance. Born to a single mother in a Brooklyn neighborhood, his childhood was difficult. His mother, LaToya, worked tirelessly as a nurse, taking double shifts to ensure that Jamal and his younger sister, Aaliyah, had what they needed. Jamal grew up in a small apartment with thin walls, and the streets outside were often noisy. Yet, despite the hardships, his mother instilled in him the values of hard work, determination, and pride. Soccer became Jamal's refuge early on. His father, who passed away when Jamal was 8, had introduced him to the sport. They'd spent weekends at the park where Jamal learned to dribble, pass, and shoot. After his father's death, soccer was Jamal's way of connecting to his memory. He practiced endlessly, often barefoot, honing his skills on concrete courts in the Bronx. When Jamal earned a scholarship to Hudson College, it felt like a dream come true. But reality hit hard when he joined the campus. Hudson prided itself on diversity, yet Jamal quickly realized it was more of a buzzword than a reality. The college's elite soccer team was dominated by players from affluent families. Their polished cleats and designer jerseys contrasted starkly with Jamal's second-hand gear. Despite his obvious talent, Jamal was always the last to be noticed, or not noticed at all. He attended tryouts, displaying footwork and precision that could rival the best, but the coach's eyes rarely lingered on him. Some teammates whispered behind his back, their comments dripping with prejudice. "He's good, but he doesn't belong," they'd say. Jamal endured it all silently, his heart bruised but his resolve unbroken. Hudson College's campus was a hub of activity. Its towering brick buildings, sprawling green lawns, and state-of-the-art facilities symbolized opportunity and excellence. The soccer field, tucked into a corner of the campus, was a jewel in Hudson's crown. It boasted pristine artificial turf, towering floodlights, and bleachers that could host hundreds of spectators. It was a place where dreams were made, just not for everyone. The field was alive with energy that afternoon. The team's practice was in full swing, with players executing drills under the watchful eye of Coach Wallace. The coach, a man in his late 40s with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor, was known for his selective eye. To outsiders, his choices seemed fair, but Jamal knew better. Coach Wallace rarely looked beyond the obvious. A player's background, connections, or image often influenced his decisions more than raw talent. Jamal sat on the bleachers, the old soccer ball resting by his side. He scanned the field, observing the players' movements and imagining himself in their place. His mind raced with strategies he'd use if given a chance. Yet, as he watched, he couldn't ignore the subtle glances some players threw. Glances filled with condescension as if to remind him of his place. The sun began to set, painting the field in hues of orange and gold. The players' laughter echoed, but it sounded like a taunt to Jamal. The field, so inviting to others, felt like a forbidden territory to him. Still, he stayed, drawn to the game like a moth to a flame. He didn't just love soccer, he needed it. The field might not welcome him, but it was where he belonged. He just had to prove it. Section 4. The Catalyst incident practice ran smoothly until Ethan, the team's star forward, attempted a sharp pivot and landed awkwardly. A collective gasp rippled through the field as Ethan winced in pain and fell to the ground. The players gathered around him while Coach Wallace rushed to assess the situation. It was clear that Ethan wouldn't be able to play anytime soon. The coach's face was a mixture of frustration and worry. Hudson's next game was critical. Losing Ethan was a significant blow. As the team murmured among themselves, Jamal saw an opening. His heart pounded as he stood, gripping his ball tightly. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to show them what he was capable of. "Coach Wallace," Jamal called, stepping onto the field. His voice was steady, but his palms were sweaty. "I can take Ethan's place. Give me a chance to prove myself." The coach turned, his eyebrows raised. "You?" he said, his tone skeptical. "This isn't a playground, Johnson. This is serious." Jamal met his gaze with quiet determination. "5 minutes, coach, just let me show you." After a moment's hesitation, the coach relented. "Fine. 5 minutes. Don't waste my time." As Jamal stepped onto the field, he felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. Some curious, others mocking. The whistle blew and the game began. Jamal moved with a grace and speed that took everyone by surprise. His footwork was precise, his passes flawless, and his shots unstoppable. Within minutes, he scored 2 goals, leaving the team stunned. When the drill ended, the field fell silent. Coach Wallace stared at Jamal, his skepticism replaced with something resembling respect. Jamal had finally made them see him. Our Prejudice. Journalists reached out for interviews, eager to learn more about the boy from the Bronx who had broken through barriers at one of New York's elite colleges. The attention was overwhelming. Jamal, who had spent months feeling invisible, now found himself at the center of conversations he never anticipated. Strangers on social media sent messages of encouragement, sharing their own experiences of overcoming discrimination. Jamal was moved by their words, but the newfound fame also brought an uncomfortable spotlight. On campus, reactions were mixed. Some students congratulated him sincerely, while others treated him with a newfound politeness that felt superficial. A few players on the team were openly supportive, acknowledging that he had earned his place. Others, however, avoided eye contact, their silence speaking volumes. Coach Wallace called Jamal into his office later that day. The usually reserved man looked uneasy as he sat across from Jamal. "Johnson," he began, clearing his throat. "I'll admit The whistle blew, signaling the end of the drill, but the sound barely registered in Jamal's ears. He stood on the field, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face, as the silence around him grew heavier. The players who had once dismissed him now looked at him with astonishment, some exchanging murmurs of disbelief. For a moment, Jamal felt suspended in time. He had done it. He had shown them what he was capable of. Coach Wallace approached him, his usual stern expression softened. "Johnson," he said slowly, as if tasting the words for the first time. "That was impressive." The compliment was simple, almost reluctant, but to Jamal, it felt like the validation he had been chasing for months. Yet, Behind the sense of accomplishment was an ache he couldn't ignore. Why had it taken this long? Why did it take Ethan's injury for them to finally see him? The rest of the team dispersed, some patting Jamal on the back while others remained silent, their egos bruised. A few players muttered half-hearted congratulations, their words tinged with disbelief. "Didn't think you had it in you," one said, his tone more surprised than complimentary. As Jamal walked off the field, his mind swirled with emotions. Pride, relief, and lingering frustration mingled in his chest. He thought of his mother, who always told him to rise above the prejudice and focus on his goals. He thought of the countless nights he spent practicing alone, perfecting his skills while others doubted his worth. News of Jamal's performance spread quickly. Within hours, the story had reached the campus cafeteria and dorm rooms. Students whispered about the kid from the Bronx who had outshone the team's best players. Some praised his talent, while others questioned why he hadn't been given a chance earlier. Jamal's actions sparked a broader conversation about fairness and opportunity on the campus. But the ripple effect wasn't confined to Hudson College. Jamal's friends back home heard about his triumph and celebrated it as their own. To them, Jamal's success was a victory for every kid who had been told they didn't belong. Jamal felt a newfound sense of purpose, not just to prove himself, but to break down the barriers that had kept him on the sidelines for so long. That night, as Jamal sat in his dorm room, he reflected on the day's events. His heart swelled with gratitude for the chance he had seized, but the fire of determination burned brighter than ever. This wasn't just a personal victory, but a step toward something more significant. Jamal had made them notice him, but now he wanted to make them remember him. The following morning, Jamal woke to a buzzing phone. He blinked groggily, trying to make sense of the flood of notifications lighting up his screen. His inbox was filled with dozens of messages from classmates, friends back home, and even strangers. One onlooker uploaded a video of his stellar performance from the previous day to social media, which was gaining traction quickly. The caption read, "Talent beyond prejudice. Jamal Johnson shines on the field." The clip captured his mesmerizing footwork, the precision of his passes, and the electrifying moment when he scored the final goal. Within hours, the video had thousands of views, with comments pouring in. Some praised his skill, while others called out the systemic biases that had kept him on the sidelines. "This kid should have been on the team ages ago," one comment read. Another said, "Proof that talent knows no color." But there were also critics. "Why are people making it about race?" one person wrote, missing the larger narrative. Jamal was thrust into the spotlight, his name and story spreading across the campus and beyond. Local news outlets picked up the story, framing it as an underdog, triumphing against underestimated you. "You've proven you belong on this team. If you're willing, I'd like to offer you a permanent spot." Jamal felt a surge of satisfaction, but didn't let it show. "Thank you, coach," he said, keeping his tone even. "I've always belonged here. You didn't see it before." As the video continued to circulate, it sparked broader conversations about prejudice in sports and the unconscious biases that still linger in institutions like Hudson College. Jamal's story resonated with many, not just as a tale of talent, but as a reminder of the barriers that need to be dismantled. Though Jamal appreciated the attention and support, he remained grounded. For him, this wasn't about fame. It was about ensuring that no one else would have to fight as hard as he did just to be seen. Jamal's story was no longer just his own. It had become a symbol of resilience and the fight for equality. As the days turned into weeks, Jamal settled into his new Hudson College soccer team role. Practices became a different experience. No longer was he an outsider watching from the bleachers. Instead, he was on the field, training with the team, his presence undeniable. His determination, skill, and quiet confidence began to win over even the most skeptical players. Slowly but surely, The whispers of doubt were replaced with nods of respect. Jamal didn't just play for himself. Each time he stepped onto the field, he carried the weight of everyone dismissed or overlooked. His performance was more than impressive. It was transformative. Game after game, he proved that talent transcends prejudice, silencing critics and inspiring others. But Jamal's impact extended beyond the soccer field. His story became a rallying cry for change on campus. Student organizations invited him to speak about his experiences, and he used these platforms to address the biases he had faced. "It's not just about me," he told a packed auditorium one evening. "It's about creating spaces where everyone is seen for who they are and what they can do, not judged for what they look like." The administration, prompted by the widespread attention Jamal's story had garnered, launched initiatives to promote inclusivity in campus activities. Policies were reviewed, and workshops on unconscious bias became mandatory for faculty and coaches. Jamal's courage and persistence sparked a movement that reshaped Hudson College's culture. For Jamal, the journey was deeply personal. He often thought about his mother's unwavering belief in him, the long nights he had spent practicing alone, and the countless times he had felt invisible. Standing on the field before a roaring crowd, he felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. He had faced prejudice head-on and emerged stronger. In his final game of the season, Jamal scored the winning goal, securing Hudson College's championship. The crowd erupted, chanting his name, but Jamal didn't celebrate alone. He pointed to the stands, where his mother and sister cheered, their pride shining brighter than the floodlights. As Jamal walked off the field that night, he reflected on how far he had come. His journey was a testament to resilience, but he knew work would still be done. In an interview, he shared a message that resonated far beyond the campus. "We all have a role to play in breaking down barriers. Sometimes it's speaking up, sometimes it's giving someone a chance, and sometimes it's just listening. Change starts with each of us." Jamal's story left an indelible mark, not just at Hudson College, but in the hearts of everyone who heard it. It reminded people of the power of perseverance and the importance of seeing others for their true potential. His triumph wasn't just his own. It was a victory for fairness, equality, and hope.